White starts with a classic queen's pawn opening, and black matches it move for move. At this stage, the game looks calm, but it already has the shape of a real fight, central tension, flexible plans, and a lot of room for one side to make a big strategic mistake. Black chooses a slow, slightly unusual move. It does create space for the bishop and can prevent some ideas later, but it also gives white a free hand in development. In sharp games, that kind of small loss of time can become a big problem. Now black becomes more active and pins the knight. This is the first moment where black looks like the side with initiative, but the position is still unbalanced. White is developing naturally, while black is already spending energy on side ideas instead of pure development. Now black becomes more active and pins the knight. This is the first moment where black looks like the side with initiative, but the position is still unbalanced. White is developing naturally, while black is already spending energy on side ideas instead of pure development. And here black retreats the bishop all the way back. That is the kind of move that tells the story of the opening. One step forward, one step back. White is quietly gaining space and momentum while black's pieces start to lose coordination. Black goes all in on the king side with an aggressive pawn push. It looks ambitious, even dangerous, but it also weakens the king's shelter. This is the kind of move that can either create a real attack or collapse completely if the opponent is ready. Black regains the piece, and the game opens up. Now, the position is sharper, and both sides have to calculate instead of just developing. But the key question is already visible. Who is actually safer? Right now, white's king is still flexible, while black has already created holes around the king. Black regains the piece, and the game opens up. Now, the position is sharper, and both sides have to calculate instead of just developing. But the key question is already visible. Who is actually safer? Right now, white's king is still flexible, while white's bishop gets active and black reacts with another pawn push. The problem is that black keeps chasing pieces instead of finishing development. That usually works only if the attack is truly justified. Here, it starts to feel like black is spending too many tempi for too little control. Black has already created holes around the king. Beautiful rook lift by white. This is not a random move. It's a sign that white is switching from quiet development to kingside pressure. The rook is heading into the attack, and suddenly white's pieces begin to look coordinated and dangerous. White castles long, and that changes the whole mood of the game. Now white's king is safe, the rooks are connected, and the board becomes a race. Black has pushed pawns on the king side, but white is now ready to punish the weak squares and the exposed king position. White's knight jumps into the center and takes control of key squares. This is strong, practical chess. The pieces are active, the pressure is increasing, and black's position is starting to feel cramped. White is not just surviving. White is taking over. This is the turning point. White removes an important defender, then the queen invades with check. Once the queen enters on these terms, the attack stops being a threat and becomes a real problem. Black's king is forced into survival mode, and the whole position begins to unravel. White keeps the checks coming, then opens the center at exactly the right moment. That is the finishing touch. When the king is already exposed, opening the position is usually fatal. White is not chasing random material. White is turning the board into a full attack. And black resigns. This is the kind of game where the final result is decided long before the last move. Black's early pawn storm created weaknesses. White's pieces became more active, and once the queen and rook joined the attack, the position became impossible to hold. A clean example of how overextension can get punished hard.